if you can see them as entrepreneurs, which is the way we're raising them to be, when you talk to them, that's the way you're treating them. Entrepreneurship is the true path, and sports is just your business right now.
Community outreach for financial institution often goes hand in hand with financial education. And like many aspects of banking today, staying relevant requires reinvention and changing with the emerging trends of your served community. With us today is Cathy Landtroop, Chief Marketing and Communications Officer, and Lubbock Smith, VP and Director of Community Development and Outreach for Vista Bank, to talk about their approach and meeting the unique needs of their market. Vista Bank is a Dallas, Texas-based $2 billion community bank with a legacy dating back 112 years. Cathy, Lubbock, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So you have like a very interesting approach, and the market that you serve is rather unique in a lot of aspects. But I want to talk a little bit about what your overall approach or philosophy is for, you know, how you engage with your community and how you work with them from a support standpoint.
Absolutely. So great question. I think that, you know, over a century we've been doing this, right? So it's evolved with different leadership, and I think that we primarily were a small rural bank for the first 100 years. And so we had a lot of underserved communities that we were working with in West Texas, right? And so really working with financial literacy out there, getting in the schools, involved with the community projects and stuff has always been a part of what Vista's done. And in the last 5 years, it's been John Steinmetz, our CEO's vision that has really kind of come to fruition and broadened that to engage a lot more in the metro. We're a very diverse bank. We have, you know, a lot of metro locations and now in addition to the rural locations. And so the financial literacy has evolved with that to serve a lot of different communities. And Lubbock, you came on in 2020.
Yeah, it seemed like way longer than that, for sure.
But definitely brought on a lot of the NIL work, a lot of the different partners that we partnered with here. You want to talk about how you kind of brought up Future?
Yes, ma'am. So had the privilege and honor of meeting the CEO, John Steinmetz, in a very, we'll say, coincidental incident. It was definitely a divine appointment encounter, and had the opportunity through John, our CEO, to meet Cathy, and they were just very had a great vision in terms of empowering the community, providing a hand up, not trying to make it seem very gimmicky and photo op, but in a real way to transform the community through financial literacy with the Dallas South community initiative that we had. And when we sat down and met, they said, "Do you have any thoughts and ideas?" And given my background, having grown up here in Oak Cliff, played football at Carter High School, played football at the University of Kansas, where I was a 4-year starter with 3 different head coaches. And then I had I want to say almost 10 plus years career experience working in college athletics with life skills and academic advising and a number of different things I served. I thought it was best to start with what I knew, and, you know, bridging the gap in terms of the things that, you know, I learned, you know, in our relationship with banking, and wanted to educate Carter High School student athletes. And then I rolled into the nonprofit that I have co-found with helping educate student athletes on financial literacy and entrepreneurship. And so it was a great fit. It was a great win-win. John always had this vision, along with Cathy and myself, being able to partner with the vision that I had with making that happen. And today we have the fruition of that. So we're excited to continue this work.
So that's a pretty broad market when you start thinking about like customer requirement. I mean, you're going from like the urban of urbanist type of environments to West Texas, which is about as rural as you're going to get.
Right.
Even with commonalities in the economics and weather and all that, like the requirements are very different. Like you're serving very different people. So how do you approach that? Like, how do you help to evolve? Like you said, you've got more than 100 years of legacy serving, you know, this environment and across the state of Texas. How do you approach that to kind of keep that fresh and and continue to like not abandon where your roots are from?
Right.
I would say, to build off of what we were just discussing, sports truly transcends society. it's a common language that everyone knows. Cathy is a Red Raider. She loves some Red Raider basketball. I'm a Jayhawk. You get us talking about sports, and then you can have us discuss about financial literacy and wealth and entrepreneurship. So that was a way of being able to reach the communities in a way that it's kind of like a medicine with a candy approach. People think that, it's about sports, but let's also talk about things that's meaningful that can help transform your life from a holistic approach. That banking is a huge core component to it that allows them to be able to be self-sufficient and give a hand up. And so I'll let Cathy, build upon that. But that was a way of being able to really, come with a very innovative approach that's outside the box, because most of the time banks are often doing the same, things over and over again. It can get repetitive. It can get daunting, and people want new fresh things in society. And so we are, I would say, very innovative and, cutting edge and finding out ways to meet our clients where they are to help them, reach their full potential.
Absolutely. And I think back to when John was the principal for a day at Dallas Carter, and he left there thinking every student athlete at Dallas Carter is hoping to make it big, right? They see their only path out as professional athletes. Yeah. And he said, here we have this lack of diversity in the banking industry of people wanting to go into this field. Why can we not help folks from all across in sports being the common language to understand that there are other ways to be successful in life, that your odds are way stronger, that you will be successful and have a good career path in financial services. So on top of teaching financial literacy and NIL and what to do, even if you do make it or get to make money in college now, in addition to that, consider a career path in banking and how can we help you? How can we give you internships? We've done that across all of the markets. And I would say the other piece of it is we also don't, Lubbock spends the majority of his time, Rich, here in the Dallas market because he's from here. He chose to move back here, build his home here, raise his family here. So he can speak the language and be very impactful here. In West Texas, we have a lot of our West Texas team members that are stepping up and doing the same thing there. They grew up in a more rural area that understand Texas Tech better and understand, all the things with Lubbock. And so that people are speaking with people that understand them and relate to them well, which is very important when you're trying to get anybody's attention to grow in any area, but financial literacy for sure.
So it's worth pointing out here that, youth sports sponsorship is not an unusual tactic for many community banks, but sports in Texas is not like sports in most places. We're in North Carolina, and it's like, I'm here in Durham, and that's, the center of college basketball universe, as we like to claim. But that's nothing like just high school football is amongst many sports in Texas. So how do you work this? How do you have, like the air of authenticity, and really get access into something that is, so highly elevated as kind of a cultural touchstone and something that's very, very important from a community standpoint?
Well, I think there's a difference between youth sports and sponsorships, which is a marketing play if I want to put a logo on the back of a jersey or a t-shirt, right? That's a marketing play. What we're doing is very different. What we're doing is trying to build relationships with those coaches, with those programs, with those students, and help them learn where money comes from, learn how to make it, spend it, needs versus wants, at young ages. And Lubbock, talk about how you've gotten into schools. I think that's been, you've transcended the athletics to truly into the classroom.
No, for sure. And prior to coming on to Vista Bank, with the role that I have today, I was teaching third grade math and eighth grade algebra. And so when you're working with youth from the inner city, from the community, they often don't want to hear about financial literacy straight out. They kind of feel like it's kind of corny, it's kind of outdated. Oftentimes with the stereotypes, you have older white men teaching it, but to have someone that they can relate to and they can see that plays sports, that's also teaching and a number of things that they can relate to, it kind of pulls them in, allows them to understand it a bit more and understand the importance and the value of it. And so for us, it's being able to say, hey, you can't play sports until you're 65 years old. At some point, you're going to need to build up on that career. So not setting them up to have a plan B or plan C is what's plan 8.1, point 2, point 3. So that way it's linear and you're continuing to build off that. And so we understand that, given that, Vista Bank is the bank of entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs banking entrepreneurs, technically they're entrepreneurs. They're student athletes, and you're getting NIL deals. You have people reaching out to you for all these things. You need to start thinking like a business owner, but one that thinks win-win. So we want to help you win within that relationship as you set up more win-win opportunities overall.
And that feeds into the football camp that we did with we've sponsored a football camp here that has a lot of folks from different neighborhoods that are playing and competing against each other in Highland Park, which is of course a very higher upper end, high net worth individuals neighborhood. And so it brings together the best of both of those communities. And I really was fascinated when you were teaching that group of athletes, and they were there because they wanted to get recognized. They were hoping to get spotted, right? And you started talking about different things that you could do with money or where money could go. But then when you said, and then if you're doing these deals with sponsors and companies like ours, and you're not setting aside, 20% of it for the government, is gone at the end of the year. And just things that they didn't think about. I mean, it's boring until it's not. It's boring until the government comes and takes 20% of what you thought was yours. And they had never considered that, right? They thought that, this company was going to pay them this amount of money. And so some of those things, he just makes them very relevant. I mean, he'll talk about, this pair of sneakers being XYZ dollars, and you think you have to have 4 of them in different colors, but do you really? And what happens, when that money runs out? So he makes it very applicable.
So it's worth talking about this, like money in sports, particularly like college level sports. And you've mentioned NIL, and for the audience, we're talking about name, image, and likeness sponsorship deals. Probably the poster child for that right now is Caitlin Clark, who was a female basketball player for Iowa State, just went into pros. A lot has been made about pay disparities and other things about Title IX, but a big part of it was like how much money comes in through NIL deals that are going to individual athletes, 18 years old, right out of high school, into college. And this is a market, like, even when that was delayed until like entering pros, doesn't have a great reputation for how well athletes were taken care of, involvement of their family, like a lot of shenanigans and bad stories. How do you address that, and how do you like look at this as either a threat or an opportunity, or how do you talk about that with many people, like a lot of kids who are maybe potentially looking at the most money they've ever seen in their entire life?
No, absolutely.
Almost like winning the lottery, right? It's almost like the same economics.
Right.
It's definitely through the relationships that we have, given that, prior to coming on to the bank, the relationship that Vista Bank has with Texas Tech, with a number of different partnerships, and we're able to help and do financial literacy with them and teaching them about, market interviews and relationships, being prepared professionally. And then here in Dallas, locally, being able to work with, we did an event with the Dallas Cowboys. We had partnership with Camp Exposure, Carter High School, with a number of different DISD schools, from SOC, TCU, SMU. So we've had those things, but the biggest thing is being able to help them understand the importance of, when you're playing this sport is not the destination, it's the vehicle to the destination where you're headed. And a lot of times they're so focused on, I need to, make it happen for my family. I need to, get this money. But it's like, okay, money's a tool. Sports is a tool. If you don't use it, it's definitely using you. So being able to set yourself up, financially, being able to understand, do you understand credit? Do you understand budgeting? Are you budgeting your time wisely? Because time is money. So these are the different things and the tools and the education that we're utilizing, along with the resources through the partnerships that are really cultivated through the relationships that we have in a very genuine, authentic way. But most importantly is just trying to get them to understand something that they really technically haven't experienced yet. For Cathy and myself, we're no longer 21 years old, even though Cathy looks like she is. But we have hindsight, and we can really see, like, hey, like, if you're not navigating these things very wisely, at some point, you're not going to have anything to look forward to, especially financially. So we just want to make sure that we look out for the best interests and put the best resources and individuals around them So that way they have a trajectory that can not only transform their own lives in a personal and I would say financial way, but in a way they can transform the communities at the same time.
Absolutely. And if you can see them as entrepreneurs, which is the way we're raising them to be, when you talk to them, that's the way you're treating them. And you point to other case studies of athletes that have gone on to be incredible entrepreneurs, and there's several of them, whether they got into athletics or real estate or you name it. There's several that have been very successful and made incredible careers right here in Dallas. And so I think
even you,
but you definitely can get their attention if they start to see themselves and think of themselves as a business person, not just an athlete. And what happens if that injury comes in season 2 and all of a sudden the sponsorships go away and the contracts end? And, it's hard for any of us at 18 to come to grips with any sort of, not mortality, but even mortality of your dreams, But if you can point to some examples of people that have done it really well versus athletes that they all knew their name and then they're declaring bankruptcy 4 years later, and just, keep those examples in front of them and teach them that entrepreneurship is the true path, and sports is just your business right now.
Yeah, what's the Jay-Z quote? I'm a businessman, right?
Business, man.
So you have a very impressive list of other organizations and partners that you work with. What's your approach to that? Like, how do you target them? How do you select them? Like, what's your criteria? Or, how do you think about what makes a good partner for you in this endeavor?
I would definitely say through the relationships. I think, anything when it comes to business, you want to make sure you're working with the right individual that has the right alignment. Our core values being, anticipate, smart, consistency, hungry hustle. Those are things that we want to make sure we're aligning ourselves with other individuals that's doing the same thing. They carry themselves very well in a professional manner, but at the same time, they're authentic, they're genuine, they're real. Those are the people that we want to align with, but also they are actionable. They're not just bitter relationships to say, hey, we're doing it, but they're actually creating action that not only best serves them, but best serves others. So we've done a good job of being able to identify great partners locally at the individual high school level with DISD itself. Internally at our bank in South Dallas, we have a number of partners too that's helping us identify more ways how we can partner and further reach the community. So I would definitely say it's through our range of reaching out relationships and them seeing the value that we're providing in a real way to the community, because they can tell when it's not real. They can tell if you're trying to advertise, if you're just trying to get people to come and bank with you. But they're being able to see that we're really looking to transform lives, and the byproduct of that is the way that the bank continues to win and thrive.
Absolutely. I mean, it's adding massive value. He makes the introduction. He does the work of networking and getting to know people. But ultimately, when he comes into a classroom, when he comes into a locker room, when he comes into any of these places or any of the other team members that are doing this work, they're adding massive value for coaches and for athletes and for students and single moms and whoever the audience is at that particular time. And that's it. Authentic, and that's the vision of our CEO. And I think that's why it's working, honestly, is because CRA, as you know, has been something that, banks are focused on a lot of things, being profitable. They're regulated on a lot of things. And so CRA is oftentimes a check the box kind of activity. And it's been John's passion based on his upbringing and some things that he went through and growing up in boys and girls clubs and such, to really say, we're going to do it different. It's not going to change until we get our hands dirty. It's not going to change until banks take ownership of some of these problems and not just write checks and volunteer, but put boots on the ground full time. A $3 million new location in the middle of it that hasn't, we're going to launch in May 6th, and it's the first bank in Fair Park in South Dallas in 30 years. That's because we've been willing to invest and get our hands dirty, and it's going to be messy. We're going to, it's not going to be a perfect thing. We're going to turn down loans, and we're going to turn down, people that are excited to have a new bank there. It's not going to be perfect, and we expect to be criticized for those types of things. But until we try and really jump in and provide the education and a path to yes, and teach people to fish, but also provide a quality pond from where they can fish, then we're never going to change those communities. And as community banks, that's a real opportunity that we have. It's a responsibility that we have, quite frankly. And John has and the thankfully been willing to put the and to make that a reality.
Because of John's vision, it's contagious to where it's throughout the rest of the bank, but not only internally, but externally. You have I'm not going to say too much, but other banks wanting to figure out, the secret sauce and the things that we're doing. And thankfully we have John's vision with the board and the personnel that we have to carry out this vision every single day.
Now, about the expansion in South Dallas, understanding that's like an expansion of expanding the footprint of the bank and having more local presence, but you're also partnering with several nonprofits and community groups, right? And providing space for them in that location. Tell me a little bit about that.
So we have the banking center in the classroom being able to teach financial literacy, banking, real estate, entrepreneurship, anything that will put people on a path towards generational wealth individually and then economic development. Collectively, that's what we want to do. Partnering with internally inside of the bank, the Dallas Bank Chamber of Commerce, where they have office space in the incubator, and then also an entrepreneurship center that's going to be titled, the name of it is the South Dallas Fair Park Innovation Center. It'll be led by Darlisa Dills and James McGee. So that way, if you have entrepreneurs that are, pre-venture, startup, all the way to well-seasoned, needing a co-working space, they need more resources, just wrap around services, all of that is available inside of the 11,000 plus square foot facility that we have at the bank.
This is a really interesting story, a unique approach to how you're addressing the unique needs of your community. If anybody's really interested in learning more about this or the initiatives or looking for a partnership opportunity, where can they go to learn more?
Absolutely. Well, vistabank.com is the easiest place, and or reach out to us on LinkedIn. But there's a page there that talks about the South Dallas Initiative, and it's all in the Financial Literacy Resource Center on the website. And so easy to go there and connect with us. Or if you're looking to have Lubbock or someone to come speak or help your program, then it's also a great resource. And then, of course, we're happy to share. Other banks have reached out and said, how are you doing this or that? And honestly, this is going to take a lot of banks. It's going to take a lot of partners. We don't think that we're going to do this alone. We don't think we're going to do, a fraction of it. We're like the starfish on the we're just going to throw one in at a time and say one at a time and help elevate communities one at a time. We hope it's a pilot program that we can learn from and trip and fall and get back up and keep going until we can replicate it in other underserved communities and find a way to help people create generational wealth and give them a hand up and not a hand out. And that's the heart of this bank. And we're going to put it in action even more here in a couple of weeks.
Yep. It'll be on May 6th. It'll be our grand opening ribbon cutting ceremony, May 6th at 10 a.m. Location is 3225 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, Dallas, Texas, right in front of the Fair Park, State Fair, Texas. So very excited.
Well, we'll put direct links to all of that in the show notes. Cathy, Lubbock, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having us, Rich.